Alright, what's up everyone? It's Ruby here. Bring you guys live. So just to reiterate, if you're new here, we're Power to Survivors. We are working to make an actual change, help survivors of abuse and predatory behavior. And this organization was created like March 29th, basically in 2024, and we're actively working to get a lot of like legal stuff done and really be recognized as a true organization. We're working on funding and everything, so if you would like to help and be a part of the movement, please check the description down below. There will be a link to join the Discord. Oh, that's what I was going to do. Wait, before we continue, I realized I had an idea. I don't know if it's gonna work, but I think this might work. I had an idea of something that we can do. Oh wait, no, okay. This should work. I'm pretty sure this should work. Okay, so now I do that, and so now there should be like a watermark, I think. Yes, okay, and then now if you scan the QR code, it should work in theory. Let's see, does this work? I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't know if that's gonna work, or maybe it has to be like solid, because I think it might be a little bit too transparent. Wait, okay, maybe I should just make sure that the image itself works. Because that would actually be good to know. Okay, so if I do that... Okay, so that definitely works. Okay, so I think there has to be like a background behind it. So let me see. Just to make sure... Let's see. Because I had this idea, and I was like, I don't know if it's going to work, but I should try it. Okay. So then let's edit the color. We do want a background. We want the background to be black. Or maybe actually... Well, okay, yeah, I do want it to be like that, and then, documents. And then take this. Okay. Download. PNG. Okay, and then... Okay, so now let's see if this works. So this is a little bit of experimenting. I don't know. Okay. Now, will it work? I don't know if it's gonna work. This might have been a bad idea. Why wouldn't it work though? I mean, it's still a QR code. I guess, I mean, I can always do it another way, and I do have an idea on that. Oh no, it works! It does! It works? Okay, good. Okay, so it does work. Okay. Oh, I see what that was. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. I see. Well, good luck with that. Okay. Anyways, sorry. Let me get back to this. Wow. I have no idea what they're talking about. I just know that there's only 2 people that's been banned. So if those are the 2 people, then then I think that it'll be okay. Okay. Anyways, okay, so today we're gonna be talking about Quiet on Set and Drake Bell. But first, let me make sure. 1 second. Okay. Anyways. So. Quiet on Set. Where to begin with that? Well, we're actually going to be talking about 2 folds of it. We're talking about Quiet on Set, and we're going to talk about Drake Bell. And the thing about it is that it does get just a little bit complicated. Not complicated in the way they may think, but complicated in how we approach it. Because it's important to remember that two things can be true. Okay. Two things can be true. You can understand that what happened to Drake Bell, completely unacceptable, inexcusable, horrific, should not have happened. And you can also say that Drake Bell did something inappropriate, should not have happened, should never have happened, inexcusable, the end. But how you approach the situation can be a little bit complicated. It can be just a little bit different. Difficult, even, actually. Because here's the thing. There is a cycle. We know there's a cycle. It's unfortunate there's a cycle. But there's a cycle nonetheless. And it's because we've allowed this to get so far. Because we've allowed this to build up so far. Because all of these things have happened. And it's gone unpunished for so long. It has become normal. Some of the behavior that is accepted in society. And the line between what is wrong and what is allowed or silently allowed has kind of integrated with itself. Or maybe it's moved a little bit. But I believe that the reason why we have this cycle of victim to perpetrator is because we have not done anything about it. When you have a situation where young children are being victims of horrific crimes, and then the person who did such crimes is then rewarded with success, with a job, with all of these things. When you do these things, it then creates this idea in their heads. Like, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it's not so wrong. And it becomes very dangerous when that happens. Very dangerous because it means that not only do we have a problem, but that problem can then duplicate. And it can continue to grow and go unchecked and not be addressed ever. And that's a bad thing. That is a bad thing. Because I believe that's how we have such a problem in society. Because we've taught people that nothing will happen, that nothing is going to happen. They've realized that they can get away with it. They've realized that they no longer have to fear going to prison, doing all this. They no longer have to fear losing their jobs and everything in between that happens when you commit such crimes. And when you have no punishment, no repercussions for crimes, you then no longer also have the ability to stop people from doing it. Because that's the thing, right? The way you stop a crime from happening, the way you prevent a crime from happening, is by administering a punishment that fits the crime. When you don't do that, when you're like, we're going to put you on the register, but you're still allowed to have a job, you're still allowed to do this, you're still allowed to be successful, that's where we have a problem. Now, I'm not saying that if you're on the list, you deserve to have no job, but I am saying that you should never have a job anywhere near kids ever again. In fact, you shouldn't even be able to be within like 15 feet of children if you're on the list. Period. And it also shouldn't be so difficult to get on the list either, I don't think. Because sometimes it is difficult to get on the list. And that's also another thing where if they're not on the list, no one knows to check them. No one knows to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't hire them. And when you have situations where it's like a little bit of a gray area, that becomes a problem. The gray areas are the biggest problems, I would say. Because when you have clear incidences where it's like, yes, they're guilty, no contest, they are absolutely 100% guilty, you're like, okay, lock them up, give them their punishment, and so on. But when it's a gray area, where it's not necessarily illegal, or it's not necessarily something that would result in jail, or it's not necessarily something that would escalate to the point of being on the list, being put on the list, that's where you get a dangerous situation. Because what manipulators and what perpetrators try to do is they're going to test that line. This is what people do all the time. When they want to do something, they don't just do it, okay? They test the line. They see, okay, let's use like theft as an example, okay? No one goes their first time to rob a bank out of nowhere. I mean, maybe somebody do, but generally speaking, you don't. No. You start small. When you're someone who is looking to like shoplift, steal, that kind of thing, you start small. You're like, if I steal this like pack of gum, will they notice? Will I be punished? No? Oh, okay. If I steal this like whole purchase of items, groceries, will they notice? Will I be punished? No? Oh, okay. Now if I steal like millions of dollars, will I be punished? Or will I be able to get away with it? And if the answer is yes every time, and that there is never a punishment, and there is no consequence, then what is stopping someone from being so desperate enough or so tempted enough when there is no consequence from doing so? Like, some people don't realize how desperate people are. Like, when it comes to, like, bills and everything, they're like, if I can get away with this, if I can get away with this crime, then I'm set for life. I might not even have to do it again because I've taken so much. And that's kind of the similar mindset of a predator. When they were able to get away with small things, like touching kids, like making content, doing more, that is when you get to the point where at some point they're going to give into that urge and they're going to do something horrific. And I hope that it never gets that far. So far with Drake, it hasn't. Not that far. But it could. And the thing is, maybe it's small now. Maybe you think, oh, it's not that bad now. But isn't that the same mentality that Drake Bell's mom had? Because here's the thing. We saw in the documentary, Drake Bell's father immediately knew there's something not right with Brian Peck. Something is going to happen. Nothing did happen yet. It hadn't gotten that far yet. But something told Drake Bell's father, you know what? I don't trust this guy. He didn't have to do anything to cause that. All it was like Brian Peck like touching Drake, the way that he talked to him, and the way that he kind of got in the way. And he knew from that moment that Brian Peck was going to do something wrong. And he did. But Brian Peck didn't immediately do that. He got away with way too much before it got to that point. Before it reached that point. I'm sure with Brian, it started out as a DM, as a small little message, as a let's test the waters. And then the more he realized that he could get away with it, the more that he realized, hey, wait a minute, I don't have any consequences, is the moment where he knew that he could cross that line and not have anything done with him. And he did. And he was proven right, unfortunately. He was proven right. He was proven that the only thing that will ever happen to him is that, yeah, he gets on the list, but he can still work, he can still do the job that he loves, and he still gets to be around the people he wants to be a part of. We, as a society, and this movement, as a general rule, have to keep everyone accountable. Everyone. Doesn't matter who it is, okay? Everyone needs to be held accountable so that it doesn't get that far. Ever again. Now, I don't know exactly what's happened between Drake Bell and the girls that have come forward, or the girls that he's hanging out with. I don't know anything. Okay. I only know what has been briefly shared about the court case and the speculation, like TikToks and everything, but I don't really know what's happened. I don't know the context of the situation. I have no idea if parents are there. I have no idea if it's supposed to be that kind of vibe that people are getting. I don't know if it's supposed to be a friendship or whatever. I don't know. I also don't necessarily know if there was anything else that Drake was guilty of when he pleaded guilty. I don't know if there were technicalities in where he was not technically guilty, but he pleaded guilty to get a plea guard. I don't know the actual facts. But what I do know is that there needs to be a clear and obvious boundary between Drake Bell and minors. Between adults and minors. Because when there isn't that clear and very clear boundary, that's when kids get a little bit too comfortable around adults. And while you might not have the intention of harming them, and you might not have the intention of doing things to them, someone else will. Someone else might. And I think that we have normalized too much adults hanging out with minors. Now, I think there are contexts to that. Obviously, like, adults have to be around the playgrounds, have to be around the schools, right? There's going to be the teacher-student dynamic. And not every time can a parent be present. But that's where you have clear, set boundaries. It doesn't matter if they're your fan. It doesn't matter if they're your viewer. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you should not, cannot, have a relationship with a fan, with a minor, with that. It's different if it's just like, oh, I'm just going to assign their thing for them. It's different if there's a parent, if there's someone, like, permitting it. But even then, it should not be normal. There should never be a boundary between, or there should never be confusion as to where that boundary is. And I think that Drake and Colleen have things a little bit in common with each other. I think maybe they didn't know that there was supposed to be a boundary there. Maybe they didn't realize that they were going too far. But now they do. They've been told. And now is their opportunity to take that accountability, admit that what they did was, okay, I shouldn't have done that, and apologize. And not do it again. You can say sorry. You can apologize. But you then have to also actively make a change in your actions. Because when you don't, how are we supposed to believe you? Think about it this way. When you were like a kid, I'm sure a lot of us went through the thing where we would say sorry, and then we would go right back to doing the same thing that we said sorry for. And what would our parents do? They'd be like, your actions speak louder than words. Your actions speak louder than words. If you're saying that, oh no, I'm never gonna go into the cookie jar again, I'm never gonna poke the hand in there, okay. But then when you do, the next time, that apology no longer matters. Because you might have been sorry, but you still did it again. When you put that hand in the cookie jar thinking, oh, my mom's not home, I'm not gonna get caught, I can do this, you're breaking the integrity of the trust that people have in you. I'm all about forgiveness. I'm all about accepting apologies. I've accepted a lot of apologies that people have given me. I'm not a difficult person to please. But I'm also a person in which I can trust you. It's pretty easy to earn my trust. It's really difficult to earn it back. Because I'm always going to think about the next actions you do, the next things you do. And I'm going to be thinking about, you apologized for that. You said you were sorry and then you would never do it again. And now I'm seeing you straight up just do it again. And it would seem that Drake and Colleen are both doing it again. Like for Colleen, for example, she didn't really apologize, but she sort of apologized. But then she was still doing it. She was still in the group chat. She was still doing the very things she was like apologizing for. And this is something that we've talked about. Well, I haven't talked about, but like Adam has talked about. Adam McIntyre, if you don't know who I'm talking about. And just the community in general. We've talked about how, like, Colleen, she didn't know there should have been boundaries there. But then when she did know, she was still in them. Actively engaging in them. Talking to her fans. Recruiting minors without even paying them. Like, doing all these things. Actively. Even after she was told it was wrong. Like, nah, I don't think you should do that. That and also sending nudes, not a good thing to do with minors. Very illegal. No, don't do that. Even as like a joke. It's not funny. It's illegal, in fact. So, I'll give Drake a small benefit of the doubt. Because he did grow up in an era where rules were still kind of being set. A little bit. Not really, but a little bit. You could argue that, yeah, it's kind of difficult to determine what a fan and what a superstar relationship is supposed to be like. Like, can you invite them backstage? Can you, like, sign their autographs and do all these things? And I can sort of understand a little bit of that. Especially, like, for example, in the streaming world. There's been a lot of streamers, Twitch streamers, YouTubers, that have been called out for these kinds of things. Because they get a little bit too personal with their fans. And some of their fans tend to be minors. But there are things that have now been set to be as, yeah, you don't do that. Like, it's been established now that having a relationship with a fan, if you're a streamer, if you're in any position of a more powerful position, like, for example, as a creator, I would be more powerful than a fan who is, like, a minor. Now, there was some stuff that he did say that he didn't necessarily know her age, or she lied about her age, or something like that. I am in the position of what many other kind of Twitch streamers have said now. Some people like Ludwig, people like a few different Twitch streamers have commented on these sorts of things. Every person who is looking to be in a relationship with someone that they do not know should always ask for an ID. Period. End of story. If you're going to get in a relationship with someone that you cannot verify their age for, ask for an ID. Plain and simple. You can be like, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, like, yeah, I'm interested too. Can I see your ID just to be safe? Like, I want to make sure that everything is, like, above ground. Like, there's no, like, weird confusions or anything. Now, I think it's tricky sometimes, right? You're in the moment. You don't necessarily want to check the ID. You don't necessarily want to do the things. But you know that you're in a position where if something goes wrong, if something is wrong, you're going to be held accountable for that. Not the person that you are with, but you are going to be held accountable for that because you are the public figure. You are the position of power. And yeah, you should be asking for ID. You should be, or at least asking friends. If you don't want to be like, I don't really want to, make it awkward or weird, like if she is or isn't, ask a friend. Be like, hey, do you know this person's age? Or, hey, this person, asked me out, but I'm not really sure her age. Could you, verify, how old she is, just so that we're clear? At least that. If you don't want to ask for ID, I get it, okay? But at least do, that. Something to verify that who you're hanging out with is an adult. It does get complicated because we don't know the full extent of the details. Now, I know that there has been a TikTok sifting around where it seems like here's the problem. Because I know that TikTok had some false information. For example, there was a picture that implied that it could have been Drake Bell hanging out with a minor, but it was actually a completely different person. So there's that. So, number one, don't believe everything you see on TikTok. There is false information being spread around. However, it doesn't mean that Drake Bell is innocent. Now, I know that that he did plead guilty, but what he pled guilty to is also a little bit misinformed. Especially because the New York Times had some completely incorrect information. The New York Times had claimed that he was he was convicted of all these things, and it just wasn't true. And there were some things that came out that seemed to imply maybe the story was not as true as what was initially said. But I also know that we weren't there. We don't know what happened. We can only know what happened between what she said and what he said. Now, he says, I didn't know her age. Once I knew her age, I left. I ended it. We didn't continue anything at all. Which, if that is true, okay. Sure. Because I think that you can't really be guilty of something that you don't know is wrong. And as long as he didn't then continue to reach out, as long as he didn't continue to then try and message or what would also be wrong is if he waited for her 18th birthday and then followed up. That would be bad. As soon as you know that they're not 18, move on. Just don't even look back. Because here's the thing. And this is what a lot of people do. And you shouldn't do that. Is that they wait for the person to become of age. And then they go for it. This was the problem with Hilary Duff, Emma Watson, Selena Gomez, Miley Cyrus. All of these people were looking at this attractive woman, waiting for her to turn 18 and then sliding into the DMs. And I think that is gross and something that has been normalized that should not be. if you are looking at someone who is under the age of 18 and you're thinking, if I just wait like a couple of years and then go for it, I'll be good. No. No, you're not good. That to me is considered grooming. Even if she does not know, even if they do not know that you are looking at them in that way, you're still grooming. Because you're actively saying, I find this person attractive, I'm going to wait until she's legal to do it. This isn't like a wait until we're married situation. This is a, you find this person attractive enough at this age to wait for them to be legal. That's not right. And that's where like the line kind of like, it gets a little weird sometimes. Because, for example, I'm sure we know about Liz Gillies and her husband. And it's a little weird. Like, I also think if you're someone who has had like a relationship with someone who is like under 18, like a familial relationship or like a co-worker or something like that, and like you've like hung out with them since they were like 6, they were like 12, they were like, since then, I do think it's weird that when they turn 18, you then go for them for a romantic way. That's strange. And I mean, that's essentially, at least what it looks like on the outside, what happened with Liz Gillies. Now, is she technically allowed to say, hey, we're gonna be in a relationship? Now, that is also the tricky part. Very tricky part. The tricky part is that when they are 18, they turned 18, and now they're approaching you asking. That's where I think it gets complicated. Because some people would say, yes, that's consent. You can go for it. I think it depends on what the relationship was or came from. Why is she approaching you? Why does she feel like she should be asking you out? And I'm not saying you have to like nitpick every single like if she asks you out or if he asks out or whatever happens. I'm just saying that what I would do, I think, well, I mean, I would never be in that situation, but what I would say would probably be okay, or at least better, is if you're like, okay, I understand you're interested, but let's wait. Let's come back in like a year or two, and if you're still interested, sure, we'll go for it. But right now, I'm not too comfortable because, you know, I didn't know you as a kid, and it's kind of awkward, and I just want to make sure that you're not, like, overthinking, or, like you're not too, like, caught up in it. I just want to be safe to be sure. And if then she comes back and is like, yeah, still kind of interested, I feel like then, okay, maybe you could argue then that is not so wrong. Unless, and I would say this, if you're someone who that's happening with, and you keep seeing her as like her younger self, like you're like, oh, you haven't changed a bit, like you still remind me of when you were 12. Yeah, don't do that. That's weird. I think that would be weird. I think that if that's like how you're feeling, don't do that. Don't get into that relationship. There are other people. Because I think that can happen. Where it's like, because like for us, or at least I think there's a very common thing where there's a child star and you watch them on TV, and then you always think of them as that age. That happened with Shirley Temple. Shirley Temple, young child, very famous child star. Everyone who looked at her could only see her for the age that she became famous for. Even when she grew older, even when she matured, people could only see her as Shirley Temple, right? The little kid. And I think that is where it is weird if you do see that and cannot move beyond that point. And you're saying, hey, let's get in a relationship. I only see you as a child. A lot that can be now. Let's say you meet each other. You don't know who she is. You don't know that she's famous for being a child star, or you never were familiar with her as a child star, or you never saw her, and you look at her. She's 18, and you're attracted to her. I would say that's okay because you are seeing her as an adult. You're attracted to her as an adult, and there is no like gray area. There's no like, oh, I see her as like a kid, like I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, if you're someone who's like, this is like a little sister to me, this is like a little brother to me, it's kind of weird when you end up in a relationship. Now, I know that there was a famous couple where that happened with. I don't think I need to spell out who. But they would constantly say in an interview, oh yeah, he's like a little brother, or oh yeah, she's like a little sister. I think it's different because they're of the same age, basically. Like they're not like older person, very much younger person. It's still weird, and I'm glad that they're not a thing anymore, but it wouldn't be weird because they're still in the same like age range. And now I know what some people are thinking. If she's 16 and he's 21, which also like, if because in some cases that is actually legal. Like countries where it's legal. Like, for example, that's what happened with... I'm not even joking you. That was the age range between Joey and Selena in the Cinderella movie. He was like 21 and Selena was like 16. I'm not even joking. And that's another thing. Why is Hollywood normalizing weird age ranges in relationships? Actually, there's a thing about Disney in general that I'm now thinking about. Because they do have a problem with ages. Like, a big problem with ages. Like, almost all of their Disney princesses are minors, or portrayed as minors. And almost all of the Disney princes are, like, adults. Like, literally, Ariel is, like, 16, and Prince Eric is, like, I think, like, 23 or something. Like, he's definitely, like, an adult. I think Cinderella's is even worse, though. I'm pretty sure. There's, like, a couple of princesses that are actually, like, 17 and 18. But a lot of them are underage. And a lot of them are with people that are definitely not their age range. Like, I think the worst is, like, Snow White, who is, I think, like, 14 or something. And he is, like, 30. I don't even, I remember, like, I feel like that's a whole nother, like, podcast. I feel like that's a whole nother episode that why is Disney constantly having weird age gaps? Okay. Let's see. 14 Disney relationships with surprising age gaps. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. So the age difference between Snow White and her prince is 14 and 31. 14 and 31. Over half. Wait, actually, no, that is actually half. Is that half? Wait, no. No, because half would be like 28. Double would be 28. So yeah, over double her age. Okay, so Hercules and Meg do seem to be actually legal. Like 18 and 28, it seems. So that's not too bad. Rapunzel's okay. Cinderella's actually okay. They're actually not illegal. Belle is said to be 17 and 21. I mean, that's not horrible. I do know that is illegal in a lot of countries. Some actually don't see 17 as a child, which, I mean, like, that's where the law gets a little bit complicated. Because you could probably argue that 17 and 21 are similar enough in age group to where it's not really weird. But I also do know that in those ages, like people don't realize how much a person changes within a year in the ages between like 15 and like 25. Because those are the reason why it's weird. The reason why it's like, because a lot of people are like, well, if like 17 and 18 are not okay, but like 17, but like 20 and 21 are. Why? And I would say that the reason why I think it's so sensitive as to those, like the age, is because your body is changing rapidly. Like, rapidly. Between the ages of like 16 and like 25, because that is like where you are truly developing, like beyond puberty, but like developing like mentally, developing like physically, just like your odds and your, like, I will say that testimonially the ages between like 16, well, I'm not 25, but between 16 and now, when I think about how much has changed between those years, there's a lot. I'm only 23, okay? So there's not too many years in between, like, 16, like... But there is. There is a lot of difference. There is a lot of difference between a 17 and an 18-year-old. Because one might still be in high school, and two might be beginning their college freshman year. Now, I will say that if it's like a high school relationship, because I know people have talked about it, where it's like, she's 16, he's 17, but he's about to turn 18, and that might make it weird. I would say, if you're in a relationship that started when you're both minors, it's not weird if suddenly he's not a minor anymore. Okay. Now, sometimes there is a natural separation that happens. I've seen it so many times. Well, in high school anyways. I saw it where like a senior would be dating a freshman or something like that. Like a senior would be dating a freshman or something like that. And then he would go to college. And then they would break up. So, yeah, you can argue. You know, they're both in high school. Yeah. But there's still a social difference enough to where there is a difference between those ages. Because so many, like, high school relationships, I swear to God, end as soon as he turns 18 or she turns 18. Like, as soon as one of them becomes an adult, they break up. Like, I think there's, like, 2 relationships, maybe, of high school sweethearts that stayed together, even with 1 year of a difference. And I think that is the reason why it's such a big deal. We make such a big deal of the ages 16 to 17 to 18. Because there is a lot of change. There's a lot of change. And I think we see it, a lot of people see it as like numbers. Okay, like, oh, there's only like a 3-year difference. Oh, there's only like a 1 year difference. What is the deal? Like, if they were 30 and she was 31, or like, there would be no problem. The problem with that is because, like, if they are, like, I don't know, like 20 and 21, like, yeah, they are doing basically the same things. I will give you that. Maybe one of them cannot drink legally, but generally speaking, they are doing and actively, like, participating in these same things. When you're 17 and you're 18, there's a slight possibility that, yeah, you're in different stages of your life. Because there's so much change that happens. Like, you're starting to figure yourself out. You're starting to understand what you like, what you don't like. You might even be starting to figure out your sexuality. And when you're in a situation where your mindset is always changing, your likes and dislikes are always changing, you're figuring out that you actually don't even like men. Like, when you're figuring all of that out, there's not really the mental capacity to truly understand what a relationship between you and another person is going to be like. And the thing is, people can say, yeah, I mean, they dated when they were like 13 and 14, like they've been together for years. Yeah, how many high school sweethearts actually end up like graduating and still being in a relationship together? I think there's a reason why the statistic is so low. Like, have you ever questioned like why that statistic is like? Have you ever questioned, like, why that's definitely, like, it does not work? I feel like there's always the joke about the high school sweethearts that, like, don't make it. Now, I'm not saying that it should necessarily cause you to go to prison if you're, like, 17 and 18. I don't think that should be the case. But I think a lot of people just naturally realize that maybe it's not going to work out. And I'm not even saying that you should, like, ban, like, people, like, being in a relationship together until they're 18. No. They should understand and realize that relationship. And I think they should realize that, yeah, this is going to be more complex than you think. And also, let's just normalize, like, being single. I feel like so much of society is built around like a dating culture. Like, you You do taxes together. You get married. Like, you do all these things together. There's always like the master bedroom, like the 2-person bedroom. There's always like the Valentine's Day, and like even like romantic days, like Christmas and the Hallmark movies and everything. And I think just in general, dating is so normalized in our society that it seems uncool to be single, even though it's like way less stressful. I will tell you, I have never been in a relationship. I've never been in a relationship because I just don't have the time or energy to do it. I mean, now I do. Like, now I'm like, I'd be interested. But as, like, people were saying that they were doing all these things when they were like 12. And I'm like, there is no way. Or if you did, it couldn't have been good. Like, you don't even know how it works. How did you even do that? And also, the thing is, what I've learned is that people lie. People actually lie about doing some of those things. And they will say, yeah, we hooked up, we did all these things. No, they didn't. Meanwhile, all they did was like sit on the couch for like an hour and then call it a date. I'm just saying, it's just like people. It's kind of crazy. Um, Also, a slight correction. The real life, John Smith didn't really have a relationship with Pocahontas. It was John Rolfe though. That was a huge age gap. Um, just a slight correction there. It was still a big age gap, but it was the wrong person. um, I definitely want to do like I definitely want to do like an episode dedicated to talking about like normalized grooming, because I do believe that there's a lot of like grooming behavior that has been accepted for way too long. Um, and not just by like people, not just by people, by corporations that actively market in such a way. Um, but I feel like that would take a whole like 5 hours to talk about. So we're not gonna talk about it today. Maybe tomorrow. Actually, maybe tomorrow, because I do really want to talk about it. But when it comes, let's go back to the topic at hand. Um, I think that if you believe that Drake Bell is 100% guilty and that he should have consequences, you have the right to believe that. And I can understand why you believe that. I do think that it's a little bit more of a complicated situation. I also think that in some cases, just because you have done something that is wrong doesn't necessarily mean that you should be, like, punished for it. And what I will say is that you can do things that you did not know was not okay. The difference is what you do after you know. If it's true that Drake Bell did not know her age, didn't know, once he did know, nothing happened again, I would say that's okay. When it comes to... Here's the difference between Drake Bell and Colleen. If what they are saying is true. If we can believe them. From my perspective, Drake Bell ended the relationship as soon as he knew. As soon as he knew, like, this was not okay, he knew. Colleen continued after people told her that it was not okay. After people told her that she shouldn't be doing this. After she knew that this was wrong, she continued to do it anyways. That is where we have a problem. Because now you do know. Now you know that it is illegal, that it is wrong, that you should not be doing this. And you're doing it anyways. That, to me, shows not only do you know, but now you're choosing to actively do it. That is wrong. That is wrong. I would also say, because I remember there's a Minecraft YouTuber. What was his name? That was, like, in a relationship, but it was like a 17-18 situation. What is it? Carson. Yeah, Carson. And I know that people were like, well, I don't really know the details about that, but I do think that it's complicated when you're classmates. Because it really depends on if there's a power difference. That is really it. Like, a relationship should never have a power difference. Like, that is why an adult should never be with a minor. Because there is an active power difference between the two. One can legally drive, do all these things, make decisions, pay taxes, everything, and one cannot. Okay, there is a clear power difference between an adult and a minor. Likewise, there is a clear difference between a college professor and the student. That is why those are wrong. Teacher and student, parent and child, adult and minor, like, those things, those are very clear differences in power. Now we have, like, creator and viewer, like, streamer and follower, YouTuber, subscriber, like, those are very clear differences. And I would say the only way that a power difference can be acceptable is when you meet in mutual ways, in mutual terms, when there is no difference between you. Because there are relationships that have developed between creators and fans. For those of you who don't know, that's Marcia and Felix Shelberg. PewDiePie and Marcia. They met each other through the comment section, and the difference is that they met on equal terms. Because while, yes, she was a fan, and he was the creator, they met each other and hung out before they decided to date. Meaning they met each other on equal terms before anything ever happened. And I would say you need to at least do that before you even think about doing a relationship. Like, there should never be, like, an online relationship when you have never met the person and you are a more powerful person than them. Like, you are a YouTuber and they're a fan and you're chatting away with each other. No. If you're going, I would say, like, if you're thinking about it, meet them first. See them first. Talk with each other first. Like, go on, like, not a date, but, like, hang out for, like, one moment. Yeah. I think sometimes people get into too fast of a relationship. They're too eager to get to that stage. And that is where you run into problems. Because, yeah, it might be consent if they're like, oh, I want to date you. Like, come on, marry me. Like, if they're like that in the comments. That might be considered consent. Sure. But wouldn't you rather, as a content creator, as someone who is in a celebrity status or anything in between, like a public figure, wouldn't you rather, like, know a little bit about the person, like, real details, not just what they said in the comments? Like, wouldn't you rather know those details before you even get involved? Like, you know it affects your reputation. Like, you know that if something happens, that's gonna look bad on you. Whether that, I mean, like, I think sometimes people are just, like, too eager to start things off. And here's the thing. And I know people say this, but I'm gonna say this. Age is not just a number. Age is more representative of the life stage someone is in. So, yes, it could be technically an arbitrary number. Like, the numbers that we made up is, like, fictitious. But they mean, what they mean has meaning. Like, there's a reason why we have life stages. Like, we have, like, infant, baby, teen, adult, like, young adult, like, adult, and then elderly. Like, we have life stages for a reason. And it's much more complex than what it might look like in numbers. Yeah. You can be, like, 72 and date a 20-year-old. And that will be legal. Sure. But it's legal because at that point, they are mature enough to understand the repercussions of their answer. At that point, they understand that being in a relationship with an older person might be a little strange, might be a little bit weird, but they're okay with it because, like, they're like seeking things. I don't know. But a minor is not in that life stage. A minor is not in that life point. Every teenager thinks, oh, yeah, like, I know everything. Like, everything I know, I'm an expert in. Like, that is the teenage mindset. Like, we think that we know everything. We think that we're mature enough to make those decisions. And maybe we are. Maybe we might be. But we're not. I mean, scientifically, the prefrontal cortex does not fully develop until you're 25. I'm not saying you have to wait until they're 25 to date them, but I am saying that the reason why there's such a big deal when it comes to teenagers and like these ages. Like, yeah, it might just be 1 year. It might just be 1 year. But that year can make a huge difference in the way someone thinks. And here's the other thing. The reason why it's such a big deal in the teen years is because what is happening in their lives. Like, those are the years where everyone is developing, like, what they're going to be when they are an adult. And by the time that they are 25, by the time they're, like, an adult, they usually kind of settle in the things that they like and the things that they dislike and the things that they're comfortable with and not comfortable with. Usually that pretty much settles. I mean, yeah, you're going to have some changes every now and then, but you're generally going to have the same habits, the same likes, the same, like, generally speaking, you'll still be, like, the same person. Sort of. I mean, some people might not be. Some people might, like, be, like, coming out as gay. But, yeah, the gay awakening. But that's also another feeling, also. Anyways. I think just by science, you can understand that person's still growing, they're still changing, they're still, like, developing. Maybe not a good time for a relationship. Maybe. I think the thing is, I also want to say, because I was also thinking of it, because of what Drake Bell said that, what we now know is probably Open Secret did. And the idea that, they, like, shamed him, or they, like, were trying to, like, guilt him into, sharing his story and everything that happened. I want to make it very clear that a survivor never, and I mean never, owes you an explanation. Owes you their story, owes you anything. No one owes you their story. It's like no one owes you their medical history. No one owes you proof that they're disabled. No one owes you an explanation as to why they have to use, like, the blue space. I think our society has just kind of, like, built itself around, like, proving people wrong, or proving people incorrectly, or, like, disproving people's stories. And that's wrong. You have no idea what someone has gone through. No idea. It doesn't matter how much you look at a person. You have no idea what their life story is. It doesn't matter if you're best friends with them. There are things that they probably have not told you. I know, you're going to be like, oh, but we share everything together. No, you don't. No, you don't. You like to believe that they do, But there are definitely things that they do not tell you. 100%. Everyone has their secrets. Everyone has those things that they just don't want to share. Even with your best friends, there might be just some things, I just want to keep it to myself. I'm not going to tell them. There's no big deal. Like, that happens a lot. And that's okay as well. It's okay to not share everything about yourself with a person that you barely know. Or even do know. No one ever owes you anything, no matter how much you love them or care for them. Like, I think about how Josh was kind of like upset, I guess, about how Drake didn't attend his wedding. And I get it. Like, they were like longtime colleagues and everything. They probably thought, hey, we're like brothers, on-screen brothers. Like, this is a special moment. Like, I want to share with him. And you can invite him. Like, you can like reach out and be like, hey, like, thought you might be interested. I'm getting married. Like, this is a thing. This is a big deal. But they also have the right to say no. Maybe something is happening. Not everyone can plan around your life. Like, for me, I have a lot going on. So, I might not have time to go to your ceremony or whatever. Like, I'm proud of you. I'm glad you're going through it. Like, good for you. But you have to know that, like, I have a job, I'm doing stuff on my own, like I have a lot to commit, and maybe you do see me like online, like now, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm like not, like that doesn't mean like because I sometimes think about that, right? Like, do I tell people I'm busy when I have a stream planned, when I have like things planned, like? Even if it's like a gaming section, like, even like I don't, like, it's not that I'm busy, it's just that I just don't want to hang out. Like, I think you always have that right to just decline someone. Just say no. And that doesn't mean that you don't love them. It doesn't mean that you don't like want to hang out with them or something. All it means is that not right now. Maybe another time. Not right now. And yeah, that can be for big moments too. Maybe it is something that will only happen in once in a lifetime. Maybe. But that doesn't mean that you have to drop everything you have and go. I also think that's kind of like, it can be just like a little bit predatory in a way. Where like you offer, they say no, and then you try to like guilt them for doing so. Then you try to like say, don't really like that. Oh, we're not gonna be friends after this. Like, I think you have to kind of understand that even the bestest of friends don't owe each other anything. I think when you have the mentality that someone owes you, like, oh, you owe me your story, like, you owe me an explanation for this, like, you owe me a reason why you declined my call, like, I mean, you're valid for being hurt by that, sure. But I think that consent is a very big thing. Consent is not just a sex thing. Like, not just a relationship thing. Consent is just, in general, everything. And you always everyone always has the right to revoke their consent. And say, no, actually, I'm not too comfortable with this. No. It's like, there are people, right, who will make jokes that are a little bit on the edge. Little bit on the edge. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, my friend loves it. Or like, oh, yeah, my friend's cool with it. And sometimes they push that boundary. Or the friend comes around and is like not comfortable with it anymore. Yeah, there's always a right to say, you know what, I don't really like that. No, that's not really something that I'm cool with. Because that does happen. I've had that happen. Where like I'm 18 and I'm thinking about what happened when I was 7, and I'm thinking like, actually, not as fun as I thought it was. Like, no, that, something wasn't right about that. Like, yeah, it's been years, and no, I wouldn't be like, remember that time when you did this to me, like, 15 years ago? Like, no, I'm not gonna be like that, but I can also still be valid in, like, thinking about, like, that wasn't that cool. Like, that was, like, a little racist. And sometimes you, like, I don't know about you, but I have had moments where it's, like, I'm just kind of, like, sitting as, like, a 23-year-old thinking about, like, wow, that was kind of racist. Or, yeah, that was actually kind of sexist. Or, like, maybe I shouldn't have been okay with that. And it's a tough thing to realize as well. I will say, it's a tough thing to realize, because you're like, because for your whole life, you could go like, oh yeah, I've never experienced like racial discrimination or anything like that. And then when you sit down and think about it, you can be like, wait, yeah, I have. Huh. I've had that happen. I've had moments of realizations where it's like, yeah, you know what? Now that I think about it, even with the best intentions, that probably was a little bit weird to say. Like, for me, oh my gosh, this is actually kind of really, this is funny because, like, it kind of shows you that words really affect people, especially as children, especially as a child. What you say will stick with them for the rest of their lives. And I will say, one thing that has stuck with me is that as a kid, Asian kid, I was often told to open my eyes. Like, for photos and everything, and it was never something that was supposed to be antagonistic. It was never supposed to be something that was, like mean or anything. Like, it was just, like, like, look good for the photo. But the thing is, as a kid, I would be confused a little bit. Because this would have happened when my eyes were definitely open. Like, and I think as a kid, at some point I realized that, like, I do have kind of like a squint. And it actually kind of is a reason why I like wearing glasses. And I don't wear contacts. I don't have any plans of wearing contacts because I realized that with glasses, my eyes are more open. And I mean, or at least more open than they would be. Like, I mean, I think they might actually just be the same, but I've tricked myself into believing that. And so, yeah, there are things that you can say with no intention of being mean or being racist or being anything. And someone can take a moment and think about that and realize, that was kind of, I don't know about that. Because also, sometimes this comes from kids, right? And kids don't necessarily know what they're saying, but kids also like take it very personally. Like when you tell them things, like when you like when you tell them that they can't do something because it's actually unsafe and probably illegal. Like when you tell them no, you cannot like ride in the back seat without a seatbelt. Like, but it's fun. But no, you cannot. But like that's the thing. Kids will do anything. I'm sure of it. Kids will do anything. Just because they will doesn't mean they should. And that is something that I think everyone needs to understand. And that is why, no, kids cannot give consent in any capacity. Because they will say yes. They'll say, yeah, sure, that sounds cool. Or, yeah, I'm going to hang out with my fun Uncle Joe. Like, I love Uncle Joe. Like, it's always fun at his place. I think also that if you're someone looking in and you're like, I didn't like that joke that person said to another person. And maybe those two people find that funny. Like, find the joke funny. But you're like, I'm not too sure about that one. I do think that's okay. And you're allowed to feel that way. Because even when there are jokes that are not targeted at you, you still have the right to feel the way that you feel. Like, you can feel like, I'm not too comfortable about that. Now, it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that friend's feelings is wrong or anything. Like, maybe they do find it funny. Maybe they're just that way. They're cool with it. But also, sometimes you might actually make them realize that, yeah, actually, that wasn't okay. Because maybe they've tolerated it too long. Maybe they just accepted it because, like, it's been normalized. Like, they thought it was normal. That's the other thing about kids, right? We learn to think that our life, whatever it is normal. Whether it's the religion that we follow, whether it's the knowledge that we have, whether it's the friendships and behaviors and the parents that we have, like, we think that's normal. No matter what it is. And we can only think that it's normal until we're proven it's not. Until we're told, hey, yeah, that's not normal. Like, there are people, like, that are my age, older even, who don't realize what they went through wasn't normal. Like, have you ever had that friend who, like, shared something that was, like, strange, like, and a little bit, like, concerning? And they're like, oh, yeah, I thought it was normal. And then you're like, no. Like, no, that's not normal. Like, yeah. I'm sure you have, because I'm certain, like, almost everybody has had that moment where it's like either they were being told it's not normal or they were telling another person that it was not normal. Because that's the thing about, like, predators, like, cults, like, religions and stuff like that. Like, just upbringings in general. Like, normally you're not told what is normal in a relationship. Like, the reason why DV situations are so dangerous is because usually the person being targeted thinks or has justified that relationship that they have is normal. That it's not abusive. That it's not toxic. Because how could it be? Like, he loves me. Like, and it's very difficult because you need them to realize that it's not normal. It's the only way to stop the relationship. And it's very difficult sometimes to be that person who's like, no, this isn't happening anymore. But you know what? You should never feel guilty for sticking up for a friend or being too protective over a friend. Like, if you are looking on the outside and you're seeing, I don't like this, it's okay to be like, hey, like, let's talk about this, because I saw this and, like, that just didn't. I think the problem, well, part of the problem is that sometimes we're afraid to get in between. And sometimes we think that by staying silent, we'll have a better relationship. We'll be better friends. We'll be closer friends. By staying silent, you're doing your friend a favor. Like, you're allowing them to, like, do this. But I think in many cases, when you stay silent, when you don't make your friends more accountable, like, even if you're friends with the person who's being accused of that behavior, if you see something and it's, even if it's your friend, whether it's them receiving or them giving, it's okay to say something. Better to say something. Now, you should proceed with caution and be careful, because sometimes saying something does make it worse. Sometimes saying something does not help. But it's sometimes necessary to do. And you're not a bad friend for doing so. You're not a bad friend for trying to be helpful, for trying to look out for your friends, and trying to make sure that nothing happens. Now, maybe there is a misunderstanding. Maybe something is happening that is not what you think it is. I would say it's better to be safe than sorry. Because if something is not happening the way that you think it is, if something is not like, oh, it's not like that, there won't be a problem because nothing is going on. There's only a problem when something is going on. That's when they get defensive. That's when they're like, no, nothing's going on, like nothing happened. Now, it's true that in a lot of cases, you need them to be on the same page with you. It's true. Like, you need them to be okay with pressing charges and everything, and it's really difficult sometimes. But you can even be someone that you don't even know. Someone that you run into in a coffee shop, and they're sitting, and you notice something like, I think sometimes we're almost too comfortable with just being bystanders, and that is what has caused, well, not caused, but it's allowed these things to happen. Like, if you've ever seen, like, What Would You Do, or, like, candid, like, staged camera moments, like, things where it's, like, it's being filmed, but they don't know that they're being filmed, and they don't know that it's, like, just a social experiment or something. Sometimes you see, like, the reactions of these people who are literally witnessing things happening, and just, you see them just not do anything. And thank goodness it's not real, right? But what if it was? And that's the thing. Like, even if it's not that, wouldn't you rather be reassured that it's not that than ever thinking or regretting, like, oh, maybe I should have actually said something, because what if it was that? I'm someone who, I've had moments, well, mainly online, that have kind of stuck with me. I'm gonna give a quick trigger warning, because it does have to do with self-harm. Suicide. There was a time where I was a Twitch moderator for a channel, and there was a user who was being a little bit of an issue, and at some point it escalated to a ban them straight up. And then there was an exchange in the whispers, in the DMs. And they were like, let's wait until people are gone, like, talk to you, things like that. And so we wait. I wait. This is before there were, like, ban appeals. This is, like, before that was ever a thing. This was, like, early Twitch years. So, like, before, like, there were, like, really a lot. So I waited around for the end of the stream when everyone kind of just, like, goes away. And then I unbanned them to talk to them. And it was a very heavy conversation. Very heavy conversation. But a necessary one. Because, it was essentially one of those moments where it could have escalated to something very, very bad. And I was there to make sure it didn't. And I've done that actually, like, multiple times. Like, it's very difficult, especially when you don't know that person, to talk them down. But it has been something that I've done. I mean, I'll never volunteer for a hotline because there's a lot of stories about that as well. Well, not for me, but mainly things that I know about, like hotlines and like the way that they work and everything. Sometimes hotlines are not the best thing to call. I mean, there are something to call, but it's difficult because there's not as many like volunteers, and they actually are having issues with people volunteering to do that. I know that there are like many that are like kind of struggling to keep people in the door so that there's always somebody to talk to. And it's because it's very draining. It takes a very special person to be able to like talk to people that you don't know like that, and hear their story and hear their pains and hear what they've gone through, because you'll hear things that they've never shared with anyone ever. I know, like, it's also very difficult being like a nurse, especially a hospice nurse, or like nurses that tend to people on the deathbed, because you'll hear things, you'll be told things that will shock you. Confessions to things they might have done that they got away with, things that might have happened to them that never got checked, that like there's so many confessions. Like, there's a surprising amount of confessions that happened on the deathbed, because I mean, I guess at that point you know you're going, so there's no point in just hiding it anymore. That's how some cases have been solved, is that they found the guy because they confessed on the deathbed. And it's always very difficult to deal with. And sometimes you also need to recognize that it's okay to ask for help. Like, even if you're not at that point, ask for help anyways. It's never too early to reach out to somebody. It's never too small, too insignificant to talk to somebody. And I think as survivors, we need to make sure that we're open to hear from people that we do not like. It doesn't matter if it's Donald Trump. It doesn't matter if it's like Vladimir Putin, okay? I mean, I'm being exaggerating. We should still be there to hear what they have to say, to hear their story. So yes, Drake Bell could be guilty of a lot of things. He could have done things that are unspeakable. But that does not mean that he does not have the right to share his story. And it also does not mean that we should look at his story as something that we should just like throw away because he's already done something. No. That is a very, very not good thing to say. Okay. If you think that Drake Bell is guilty, yes, hold him accountable. Yes, call him out for it. But don't use what happened to him as a weapon. Because as many people have said, survivors are listening, watching. And here's the thing. You have no idea what a survivor has done. Okay? I'm sure that we all have done things that we are not proud of, that we are not happy with. And maybe we think that if I share this, that will come out too. And sometimes the reason why survivors keep their stories to themselves is because they fear being judged for the things that they did during the transaction. Sometimes they're like, yeah, but I kind of committed like a crime. Like, whether it's like drugs or whether it's like something else, like maybe they stole something, maybe something happened where it's not above the ground. Now, some do have immunity for that situation. Like if they confess like sometimes there is immunity. Sometimes there's not. But I think as a safe space, as someone who is looking to change like a lot of things, I think one of the big ones is that everyone's story deserves to be told, no matter who they are, no matter what they've done. Now, it doesn't mean that everything that they've done is excusable or is defensible because they've done those things. But it does mean that their story is just as valid as anyone else's. Because you don't know. Yeah, maybe a survivor might be someone that has done something that that person has also done. Like, I mean, I don't really want to give examples because I feel like it's not what I want to do right now. Because I don't want to head into a territory that could be like, But I'm just saying, like, I don't know how to say this. Like, if you, I think the reason, like, survivors are, like, people are always watching. Even if you think they're not. And that's the thing, something that I've learned. Is that even if it says, like, 0 views, no one's seen it, no one's touched it, that doesn't mean that no one actually has. Sometimes they might see it and just not choose to comment or just not choose to engage. Like, just because you see like that, like no one's seen it. There's a funny thing. Sometimes if you are like streaming or if you are like very quick, sometimes your like stat does not count. Like if you are like scrolling through Twitter and you see like a tweet and your view might not count. So it might technically say that no one's seen it. That doesn't mean no one has. And sometimes they'll see what you've said and take meaning to that. It's very difficult sometimes because, we don't mean anything by what we might not mean anything by the things that we say or the things that we do, but it still affects the people around us. And the thing is, you might like go on and on and on about how you're so against XYZ, and it turns out that the person next to you has done that. or is a part of that. Like, you might be like, oh, I hate vegans. Like, I don't understand it, like, everything. And you can go on a whole rant about that. And maybe your friend is, like, one of those. Now, you still have the right to feel the way that you feel, but just understand that your actions, your words do have consequences. Even when we think that we're being helpful, even when we think, I'm just trying to be supportive, I'm not really, like, I always like to operate on the assumption that whatever I do, somebody is seeing me do it. It's how I keep integrity. Like, I just assume that even if I think no one's watching, somebody's watching. But also, at the same time, I'm like, even if no one's watching, I don't care, I would still do the same thing. Because that's the thing about integrity. Is doing the same thing even when no one is watching. Now, I also do think that, going back to like the subject at hand, Quiet on Set is a very sensitive document. It revealed a lot of sensitive things. And they deserve to be heard and understood. And the experiences they went through are all valid. And here's the thing, it might be a little bit more complicated than what we know. Even now. Maybe there's more. Because there's still 2 more episodes coming out, I think. But, like, maybe it's a little bit more complicated than what it might seem. And there could be reasons as to why some decisions are being made, and maybe someone knows something more than what we know. It's not too far-fetched to understand that maybe there's been conversations happening behind closed doors that has changed someone's mind on what has happened. I mean, here's the thing. Yes, believe survivors. Absolutely. But what happens when the survivor also becomes the perpetrator? Like, do we still believe them? I think we need to understand that when we say, like, believe survivors, it's more so, like, empathize with how they might feel about what happened to them. Like, not, like, being detective mode, like, oh, I don't think that really happened to you, oh, I don't think it was that bad. No, it's more so, like, they just want to be acknowledged that their story is true and that they're not going crazy. And you can acknowledge that by saying, I'm sorry that happened to you. And you can still hold them accountable for the things that they've done now. Like, you can be like, well, actually, no, don't do that. But accountability goes many ways. And I think also, as much as no one owes you their story, I would also say the same is true as no one knows your response. Like, I think sometimes it's complicated. Because I do know that as soon as the doc dropped, right? As soon as the episode aired or was released, people were going after Josh and asking him to comment on it and everything. And I think that you should not do that. Because even if Josh never said anything, he doesn't have to. Doesn't have to. And I'm glad he said something behind closed doors. I think it's very important to. But sometimes if you do that, it takes away the authenticity of the person's intent. Because maybe Josh was intending to reach out to Drake on his own. I mean, who knows? And maybe he already did. But now you're pressuring him to do it publicly, and it might not come off as genuine because you told him to do it. And that's what a lot of people are saying. A lot of people don't believe what Josh has said, or what Drake has said regarding the situation. And they think that it was not in the most authentic way. And maybe that's true. I don't know. Maybe Josh saw the pressure of having to make a public statement. And did. But at the same time, I'm also someone who believes that you can't complain that someone isn't doing something, and then when they do it, complain that they've done it. Like, huh? Now it's one thing. It's different when they were like, you know, say sorry, and then they don't really say sorry, and they pretend to say sorry, like Colleen. And make a song about it. We do need to do a whole episode on Colleen Ballinger. Oh my god. I think that maybe that can be tied into like the whole grooming episode. I think tomorrow we'll talk about grooming and Colleen, like in detail, because that's something that I have wanted to talk to do. I just haven't had the platform to do so because it's not something that I would bring up on my main channel, like the channel that I usually like do content for, like my brand. It just it would come off like way too left field. That's also kind of why I've done this. Like now I have a platform where I can talk about the things that I've kind of like wanted to talk about, but it's kind of like weird to bring it up like on a channel that has nothing to do with it. So I'm glad I have this opportunity to do so, like away from that brand, because I think it's still important to, and it never felt right to just kind of just like insert it randomly, like, because also my intention was also not to become like a channel dedicated to that. And I feel like sometimes, like, when you start one, you start expecting other stuff, and it's just good to have a space where it's, like, dedicated to what exactly I've been wanting to talk about. But for now, that's gonna be it. Yeah, tomorrow, I think we'll stream tomorrow. There is like work that I do. We're not gonna like stream all week, but we'll see. We'll see. For now though, that'll be it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.